Blanche and I are in the middle of watching a TV series called This Is Us, or The Last of Us, excuse me. And I've found it unendurable on so many levels, relating to it way too much. Not that I'm afraid of zombies, but I'm afraid of the life journey that it depicts. And I didn't know how afraid I was until I started watching. And Blanche is loving the show. And I am truly hating it. And as of last night, for the first time ever, I just said, I'm done. And in the middle of the show, I just got up and said, it's all yours. It's not a movie I can watch. It's not a show I can watch. And it's not a show I want to particularly live. For Blanche, it's just a movie. It's just a story. And I understand that and I appreciate it. And in a way, I wish I could watch it like that. I know I've said this to you before, but when I was a little kid and my mother and I would be in the movies together and I would get upset about God knows what, even Laurel and Hardy movies where things got scary. Uh, she would go, honey, it's only a movie. And that would just calm me to the core. But I don't have my mom anymore. Um, Even though I can reach for her voice, and I tried watching this show, reaching for that voice and go, it's only a movie. And I realized all these people I was liking and caring about were going to get killed in horrible ways and slaughtered, and horrible eruptions in the societal scheme of things were really made very visible brilliantly. I think it's a really well-made TV show. I mean, I've never seen destruction so well depicted, but I don't want to go there. And I keep going back to myself and going, you're a spiritual seeker, person, teacher. Why would you have reactions like this? Why do you care? Why can't you just step back and let go? Well, I did. I said goodbye to the show. I'm not watching this show. And there are shows and things about the world and about our lives that we can literally step back from and go, nope, not watching. Even though other people are totally engaged and involved and probably would tell you you're missing something worthwhile, although I haven't heard that. But there are things we cannot step back from. And one of them is the story we're all caught up in our lives. We cannot end the story. It's big. It's very, very big story. It has historical aspect. It has unbelievable drama. It has a lot of things to be reactive to and against, and it's not always fun. And it's, of course, for those of you keyed into the world around us right now, it's really pretty awful and doesn't look like it has a happy ending, which, of course, as a Hollywood writer, all I ever wanted was happy endings. But what's really fascinating to me is I do have a capacity to take a breath and sit down and go, this is a gift. It's 50 years or more in the making. It's a gift Rudy gave me. It's a gift the universe gave me that allows me a moment of profound surrender. I can only tell you it's all I've got. I love all of you, and I love my wife, and I love my children, and everybody else. But in the deep darkness of the night, there's only this surrender. And it's a kind of acceptance, not of story so much as it is totality, accepting totality, and more than almost anything else, trusting it. when I'm with people who are dying and in the throes of dying and in trouble with that, pain, fear, confusion, all of those things, which, for whatever it's worth, is what I feel very much going on inside me, even though I may not be physically dying, but I feel all that stuff. And the one thing that comes and has come to me as a really important phrase, I may have used it before, but I'll repeat it again because I think it's important. It's called trust the journey. Trust the journey. And I've been told by people more than once that that literally is the line that helped them get through. Because if you don't trust this thing that's going on, and you are angry at it or in reaction to it or denial of it or whatever that may be, it creates a tension and a drama and a closeness and a defensiveness and a painfulness in yourself that you do not particularly want to live with. And that what you need, and we all need, and it's a practice, and it happens basically at the core of meditation, is this trust that opens up and goes, it's, thy will be done. But it is believing that what is happening is, this is storytelling, but for the greater good. Even your demise, even your suffering, even the world's suffering has something vast going on in it that is not something mind, brain can cognate. We like to think we're smart. We like to think we know things. But one of the great experiences, I think, of a spiritual life is the learning of how little we really do know, but how much we sense or are aware of in a wordless sense, in a wordless way that speaks to us. And it's basically saying, trust the journey. It's kind of all we can do. We can fight it. We can say why, or get angry at the movie screen, get angry at the world around us. But in truth, all we've got really is trust. Now, some of us, some of you, may have a deeper thing, which is a kind of knowing that you don't even have to bother to trust. It's just there's knowing. And I have to say, I have tapped into knowing on a number of occasions where it is beyond understanding and profound, and it is absolute, and it is connected to the infinite. But it also has almost always found its way into interpretation through mind. It's like I know is a statement of I, and know, which is intellectual and cognitive, and it's because of an experience that's interpreted through the mind. So the I know, the I have been, the factor that you have touched the infinite, still seems processed in many ways by brain function. I bring that up because as I watch my own journey, which I do pretty closely, and watch its unfolding, one of the things I am discovering, and I've shared it a little bit, maybe too much, is the loss of mind, the loss of the interpretive knowing, the loss of even the awareness of the vast truth that surrounds us as an interpreted, oh yeah, I was there, I've seen it, I know it, I have it, I am that, all that stuff that goes in between you and it that somehow allows you to encompass it. When you start to lose your mind, the access to that knowing is no longer disturbed by, cognited by, analyzed by brain function. It is either there or not. And there are times where it's not. It's not that it's actually gone away. It's just your mind has gone away, and your mind is not able to go, but I want, and I have, and I got, and there's nothing in between. And so there's only this vastness and this sense of presence that it makes itself known, not to the mind, but in a way that is indescribable, or does not do that. It seems to have daylight and nighttime. It seems to have up and down. It seems to have in and out. It also has a permanence in which it exists, but it is an alternating current. That is the electricity of our being. And what I am discovering at this point in my journey is that losing one's mind, and I'm not losing my mind in the madness sense, it may be the Alzheimer's sense, I don't really know, but it's no longer a trusted interpreter. It's just functioning in its own way, looking around, cognating things, but I can't use the mind as the access point to truth and the journey. The mind is not going to get me there. Rudy even called it the slayer of the soul, which is kind of an interesting comment. But what happens when you lose the slayer of the soul? Well, there's good and bad. There's nobody to slay the soul, but there's also nobody to acknowledge the soul. Oh, there's my soul. It's a whole different level or layer of spiritual experience, if you want to give it the name spiritual experience. What's happening at this phase of my own journey is that all of the things I'm trying to say and teach are no longer bound up in the simplicity of this is how it is, these are the words that I can use, this is the structure of the universe, this is how it all plays out. None of that is really working for me at this point in time. I can tap into it and I can throw things out to you that you'll grab onto. But the truth is, for me, none of that is going to be there at the very end, other than possibly trust. Just go. Because what else have you got? Also, I don't have my mom around to hold my hand and say it's only a movie. And I have Blanche, but she loves this movie. And I'm going, I don't like this movie, and so I where do I go? My kids are still caught up in the middle of the drama. So I'm kind of out here on my own. And I'm really feeling a kind of aloneness in the vastness of all of this, but I'm also feeling this simplicity of trust. And I need it because it's the only thing that holds my hand and carries me through it. I trust this thing that's giving me a grip, if you will, on acceptance and on totality. And it's funny because, in a spiritual journey, we have the teacher, we have, our whatever experience we have of the universe, we have so much flooding into us. In the end, it's very, very delicate. I don't say that it's delicate to the point that it could be broken and thrown away. It's delicate, like I would say an atom is delicate. It takes a lot to split an atom, but it is delicate. And all you have is the simplicity of your mind and your ability to go, thy will be done. And try to get to that point in your day-to-day life. It is so crucial because what I'm watching and observing it every day, and actually, to be honest, more at night, is the disintegration of everything that my mind knows, that I know, that I have as factual, the disintegration of bodily consciousness, there arising moment to moment, transformational unpleasantness or pleasantness. I cannot predict moment to moment any of it, not what any moment will be. I am not surprised anymore how in the course of a minute, 15 different things can come that are, oh, beautiful. Oh, that hurts. Oh my God. Oh, it's constant. It's constant. I never knew that kind of thing was possible. And I watch, as I walk through the day, I can take a step and it's solid and powerful and I feel great. The next step, my heel gives way. I don't know why that happens. I'm walking around the house and then I'm tripping over a carpet. I never used to trip over carpets. It's called the aging process, the letting go process. So how does that all fit into the spiritual dynamic? Well, I guess I'm trying to give you a bit of an indicator, which is body, mind, consciousness is a doorway, and it helps for a period of time. But at the end, body, mind are not the answer. The most you can hope for is what I would call trust the journey, and maybe this word doula, like a dying doula. I don't know if you've ever heard of that idea, but it's a really powerful thing. There are people, and I did this a bit early on in my life, where I would sit with people who were dying. And we didn't have the word doula then, but I would just sit with them and I would just hold their hand. And I've done this since, but I have discovered that just holding their hand, just putting my hand on their forehead lightly or the top of their head or somewhere, because there's something will guide you into that, will lead you into helping them feel connected and hugged and embraced and able to trust. If we could all find a spiritual doula, a death doula, someone to be there for us at that moment, that would be, of course, I think, the greatest gift. Not someone who's talking to you and saying it's going to be okay, you're all right, don't worry about it, you're doing fine. You don't want that. It's pretty silent. You just want to be held, touched, simply, cared for. You want to feel the affection of the physical for the last time. It is the first thing that greets you when you come into this life, and you would like it to be there to hold you when you leave. So touch is really important. And if nobody is there for you, then you have to do the one thing this entire spiritual journey has been about from the beginning. Touch yourself. Trust the universe. Trust the journey. And let yourself surrender, Rudy's key word, to the enormity or the tininess, whatever arises in you, that is going to be the transition of your leaving this world. This whole world is about leaning into that whole idea, the idea of the trust, the idea of caring, the idea of loving, the idea of kindness. You know, I talk about it all the time. And nothing makes me happier when I see people doing this, because it's the greatest practice there is. You're holding on to somebody else, you're loving someone else, your kindness to somebody else is so potent. It's so essential to the whole ride. But the most important part is this last part, this last moment that appears to me anyway to be right on the horizon. Probably not. I'm a dramatist, but I do feel I am being led to that space and told in a way to talk about it. I don't know why. You know, I do feel it scares people off, but if it scares you off, it's only because reality is scary, and because endgame is scary, and because we all need the unbelievable muscle of trust in order to go through it properly. We also need other people around to hold our hands. We may have that, we may not. We also need to be there to hold other people's hands in any way that we can. And we need to do it in the most beautiful way, not only when someone's on their deathbed, but when someone's sitting across the table from you, when you're going for a walk, when you're sitting in the car, whenever you're with other, be that. Be the doula, be the caretaker, be the lover of others. It is the greatest teaching in the world, and it makes you the best teacher. You know, the best teacher is not someone who sits there with facts and minds and fills somebody's head with knowledge and wisdom and all of that stuff, because, as I saying pretty directly here, your mind goes, and all that information goes. Trust me, I mean, goes in foundational ways. I mean, not for everybody. There will be people who will hold on to it to the very last millisecond and do brilliantly. But there are many, many people for whom the cognitive thing falls away, and yet there you are. There you are. And you are the person you have become over the course of a lifetime, over the course of actions chosen, thoughts thought, feelings felt. That's who you are. And it all comes down to some final core elemental thing that has always been there. And you can condition that by making it a space of trust and love, rather than, oh my God, what's going on, and confusion, which in fact is how many people live their lives. So I started this out with watching a movie or a TV show I don't like, respect but don't like, saying that there's a lot of what's going on in the world that's reflected in that show or that predicted in that show that I don't like, that there is a kind of impermanence that it reflects back to us that Buddha talked about in his first lectures. It is impermanent. Every bit of this is impermanent, including your mind, including your body, including your sense of self. It's all impermanent. Take hold of the simplest thing you can, the last thing maybe you can, and that is trust it. Just trust it. It's okay to have it all fall away. It's okay to have nothing. It's okay to watch it disintegrate into simple space and then watch the transitions that occur into, and you'll see where it goes. I predict it goes into something remarkable. I think that's the journey we're on. I trust that only because I've been given visions of it that are hard to forget. So I don't know how beneficial any of this is for you. I sit here after the class and go, what do I say? But this is what got said. If it resonates, wonderful. If it doesn't, and I've said this now several classes in a row, you don't need to listen to me anymore. Totally your call. I don't know where else to go but to the particular truth that's unfolding for me. And right now is, if you have the stomach for The Last of Us, watch it. If you don't have the stomach for The Last of Us, turn it off. And either way, you're in control. And I really wish you all the best with this incredible ride. Thank you. Questions? Any questions at this point in time? Yeah, who's that? Okay, Genna.
Bruce, my dad, when he was passing, he had kind of dementia or something for a while. He always very hard person. He would say, "There's no such." He had went through a gulag and such, and you would say, "There's no love." Friendship is just bullshit, kind of thing. The last 2 weeks, when his cognition went, and it was very interesting to see him try to catch it, where he could have maybe 10, 15 seconds of it. It was scary for me, but it was quite wonderful where I could say, "I love you," and he could hear it. He could say, "Really?" And that was quite wonderful. I want to say something about that, and I've noticed this with you, Bruce, for a long time, even maybe before about the time you started talking about climate change, that like news always focusing on the bad, that these TV shows draw us into the bad, and by going in there, maybe we even create, some of the chaos that happens in the world by putting that energy there. Maybe also we could concentrate that the younger generation is much more environmentally aware and active, that there's good things happening also. Maybe we don't have to just go into the negative.
Well, let me add to that. Yes, absolutely. You don't have to always go to the negative. You can try to overrule that. Although when your father lived in a gulag, or went through that whole experience, finding the positive is not always easy. But all of us are living in a wonderfully kind of balanced world. I do this thing. Every so often I go onto the Instagram account to see if anybody's looking at my photographs, which they're not in any big numbers, but it's nice to post them. But Instagram just somehow knows me. Of course, they have all the algorithms, and so they post all these things, and I watch these one thing after another of Instagram. Forgive me if I've spoken about this, but I look there and I go, "Oh my God, the people of this world are amazing. There are things that are going on one after another that just blow my mind." And I go, "Oh my God." And there's 30 seconds of a human being that I would never have known existed if it wasn't for Instagram. And there's hundreds of them. And they go on. And I just watch and I go, such craziness, such beauty, such talent, such who knew? How did that happen? Kind of thing. And I truly love it. And it is a kind of balance. And it's one of the good things about mass media or social media that we get to witness more of the positive stuff in the world than not. Now, of course, maybe that's my algorithm. They're giving me all the nice positive stuff instead of all the negative stuff. But it sure does make me feel good. And I never knew to dial into anything like that before. So I just look at it and I go, wow, we are an amazing species. And we are capable of things that I never knew we could do, moves and things. There's this one woman who builds these mountainous things on little bricks, and then she pulls the bottom brick and it goes in this slow motion collapse that is so, like, why would she do it? But it's so beautiful. It's so unbelievably beautiful, and I just go, okay. And of course, I subscribe to her, and she does all these different things. And I don't have to go search it out. It just appears. It keeps appearing. So I'm saying all of this because, yes, we can all watch the dark side. God knows the news gives it to us in a big way because we're so reactive to it and because it compels us so much and because we go through this incredible internal drama with it that's very enlivening in many, many ways. And so we think, oh, what if he wins? What if he loses? What if all that kind of stuff is really gigantic internally, until you go, it doesn't mean that any of it goes away and that the world doesn't get hotter and horrible people get elected or whatever. It just means it's not filtering into your everyday consciousness. There are stories I can absorb and do absorb and go, I watch the world as a fascination and learn from it. But then there are stories that just absolutely do not serve my deeper interests. And I am now learning to turn them off, which is a good thing for me. So there's a balance. And maybe there's some directive internally that comes from a spiritual place, if you want to call it that, that actually kind of says, you don't need to go there. Trust the journey. Gone. And it's very interesting. I don't ever need to know what happens to those characters. I can already give you 40 scenarios anyway. I used to be a writer, but I hate to kill off people so easily just for the sake that people get so interested in the story. I don't want to do that. Your choice.
I guess I just wanted to, kind of remind myself, but also, that by going there, that by spending our time there, either way, we're also creating the universe as our consciousness goes and stuff.
Absolutely. And I kept thinking, Bruce, you're smart enough. Just tell yourself it's all impermanent. Just watch the show from a detached place. And I tried to do it, and I just cared too much about everybody. And I just said, no, I'm not going to watch it from a detached place. Yes, it might be a training ground. All I have to do is look at the world to try to do the same thing. I don't have to turn on a TV show. Learning to be detached is good. Learning to understand that the world is impermanent is good, that we're impermanent. But does that mean I don't love the world and I don't love people in it dramatically and I want to hug everybody and I want to feed and nurture people? No, that's what I want. And everyone I want to feed and nurture is going to die. So it's a kind of the present tense love factor, caring factor is central to the human experience. I would encourage that more than anything else. Hug every person you possibly can. Be good to every person you can. Reach out to everyone you can. Love everyone you can. At the same time, it's all going to fold in on itself and die. And at the same time, there is something greater that spiritual life gives you an indication of. And just know that that's true, that all of this, whatever it is going on, exists within a larger context that we cannot understand, but we can touch. George.
I was just resonating about your ego mind being always mine, yours, everything.
Okay.
Always being paranoid of getting lost. And what our practice is to lose the ego mind. So we tend to go towards paranoid visions, which is not the reality of what everything is. That's my observation.
Well, ego mind certainly is a impediment in many ways, since it's very based on body experience. and self-experience, and reaching into the larger context is really a wonderful part of this practice. But I have to say, from my own experience, there are elements of ego mind, or at least bodily consciousness, that are going to be present until the body isn't. And that's its own issue. And one has to learn how to, I don't know what to say about it. I was going to say learn what to do, but it's going to come up in its own way. And all I can say at this time, maybe wrongly, but all I know is trust it. Tricky as it may be.
Let it go.
Yeah, day by day, moment to moment. Marty.
On the subject of love and kindness, it's became apparent last week that I still have problems dealing with unconscious people, and which probably says as much about my consciousness as theirs. How do you deal with totally unconscious people?
Mostly that's what you deal with almost every day. I feel like unbelievably lucky that you guys are here, because you are on this journey to consciousness. But most people are not on the journey to consciousness. They operate unconsciously. Some operate with some moments of goodness and kindness and intellectual awareness and all of that kind of stuff, but mostly their eyes are open about this much. They see the world through a crack, and they don't have a vision of the totality. And so most people are that. What can you do? You can reject them. You can move into a monastery, although I will tell you, half the people in a monastery are also cracked-eyed and not there. The journey is open your heart, be open, available, good, and kind to whoever is in front of you, whoever shows up. All I can say, and I said this in talk a few weeks ago, but it's so meaningful to me. If it's in front of you, Rudy would say it's yours. And the other line is, if it's in front of you, it's God. It's consciousness made manifest. And if that's what's happening in this lifetime, and this person is in front of you, this thing is in front of you, your job is to open, love, and embrace their totality as best you can. Be good. Don't try to dismiss them, get rid of them. And if they are unfortunately part of your life, and you really don't know what else to do, you can walk away. But if you can't, then you got work to do. You can't walk away from parents, brothers, sisters, certain people. They're just there, and they're going to be there. You have work. That's your work, your spiritual work. Rudy said the mandala starts with family and the loved ones, and then it goes to the larger people. You can walk away from larger people easily, and from the far off, the far parts of the mandala. The core of the mandala, no, you can't walk away at all. You got to do the work. And the work is quiet, open-hearted, loving. You have to do it. If you can walk away, fine, but I'm watching people destroy families by doing that. That ain't so great. I find that very painful to watch. I don't know if that helps, but that's all I can say. You can't just turn it off and say, or tell people you hate them or whatever. You can talk to them honestly. You can try to kindly inform them why you're struggling with them. That's a possibility. It's not always going to end well, but it's a possibility.
Doesn't.
But on the other hand, you have to walk away from it whole. That's all I can say. You have to walk away from whatever your situation is with your own heart open, and not shut down and closed and angry and hostile because of someone else. That's your problem then, not theirs. Anybody else? We're dwindling. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Is that it? Okay, Wendy.
Bruce?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hearing a voice. Let Wendy talk first, and whoever would just said Bruce, we'll go to you next. Wendy?
Thank you, Bruce. So what I'm hearing you say, just to clarify, is let's say someone very close in the family in the middle of the mandala, and extreme imbalance, anger, rage, like not just like a little imbalance, but like outright aggressive. And what I think I hear you saying is, regardless of their level of aggressiveness, or even violence, just don't close the heart and do whatever it takes to keep the heart open. That doesn't mean put self in a harm place, but not to let the heart close regardless of that level of intensity.
Can do that, yes, but it may mean if they're harmful and all of that, that you have to separate from them, or you have to move them out of your life, or you yourself out of their life. That may happen, and it's very hard. And then I watch people who've been doing that, and their hearts are going through enormous drama. It's really hard, and it's in a way their work. Their work. They may be good at it and not good at it, but one of the things I've come across because of all of you is that spiritual work does not absolve you of having to go through those experiences. A lot of people have to do it, having children, parents, people around them, partners who are not can't function with them, and there's real drama. Excuse me. And it's hard to guide people through it. Every circumstance is its own particular dance, but the ultimate choreography is find an open-hearted space and say thank you and move on, and as gentle, as good a way as you can. Hopefully you can do that. Sometimes you can't, and that's another dance. But everybody, all of our lives are so unique, and all of us are living such different day-to-day dramas and minute-to-minute dramas. It's really hard to truly empathize with another human being, only because the journey is so distinctively personal. But it has a generality and a universality that we can tap into, and the best I can say in that is be kind. Okay.
Thank you.
Who asked the other question? I don't have you on the screen.
It was me, Bruce Terrell.
Terrell?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, you're totally blurry. I don't know why.
I think I put too much Vaseline on the lens this morning. It happened like 2 weeks ago on the Zoom class that I teach, and I can't figure it out, and nobody in the Zoom class can figure it out. So I don't know what the deal is.
Okay. Well, let's go to your question.
I was on a Zoom call a month or so ago, and the guy was talking about all the doomsayers, and he called it doom porn. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective on it, because it is seductive, because we as human beings are cued in to, is there a danger out there? Do I need to be aware of this? And then, of course, with the online stuff, the algorithms, the more you go into that rabbit hole, the deeper and the more it shows up. And I'm just really grateful that we have this work that Rudy gave us, so that there's an alternative. And I can disengage from that bullshit level and open my heart and feel the energy going through my system and be aware that I'm a spiritual being. And, a lot of people, they don't know that that's a choice even.
It's true. But I will say, for whatever pornographic aspect there are real things happening in the world that are pretty awful, that there may be, I don't have the answers, things we can do collectively, like vote, support people who believe what we believe, to help the world in some way. I think that's part of our obligation, to find a way to react to all of that isn't just put your head in the sand or say I'm spiritual. I think there is a real thing going on in the world. And so, whatever that may be, we are human beings who have a kind of potential for real balance between, action and just being, and finding a way to make the action express the being. And if we can do that, then we can be very present, much part of the world. But if we're caught up in the drama and the porn of the world, then action and being get very confused, and we don't act properly, and we aren't being well. So that's a bit of a problem. So I don't think it's to disengage, and it's not to think of, oh, well, the world is what it is. Yes, the drama of it may be heightened, but I don't think it's right to not look at it. On the other hand, it's really good to find a balance point inside that goes like this. And then if you can, to touch back on the way I started this talk, trust the journey in some way. Is that it? Looks like it. Okay. next week, Blanche and I are going to some operas up in Glimmerglass, and we'll have a class here, but it's going to be an hour later. It'll be at noon instead of 11 for people on the East Coast, and at 9 instead of 8 for people on the West Coast. So if you're going to try to tune in next Sunday, you get an extra hour's sleep. Enjoy it. Lots of love to everybody. Thank you for being here. You have no idea how much it means that you are here. It's really everything. Lots of love.